Is that okay? So there are, and you're right, I totally need a handout for this. There are 5 gifts. I consider them gifts. Everybody here like gifts? I like getting presents. Everybody loves presents. There's 5 gifts of the human nervous system. I want to describe what those are, and then I want to tie it back to this flourishing on every level. Because I think these 5 gifts actually touch on everything we just said in some way, shape, or form. And if it's okay with you guys, I want to describe these gifts, and I wanted to share some personal experiences with people I've worked with. Now, I throw that out there with caution, because my intent is not to say, oh, look what I do with people, but rather how there's many different tools to create healing on all these levels I talk about. But I just want to talk about how these show up in people's lives and the experience that I've had. This isn't a sales pitch for my work. I just want to let you know, but that's the best perspective I have. Is that okay? Everybody okay with that? Okay. So, there are 5 gifts of the human nervous system. The first one is function. For my jaw to work, so my vocal cords can enunciate and create sounds, that implies that there has to be function. My muscles have to fire. I'm drinking water. There's a swallowing mechanism which brings the water to my stomach and then to my small and large intestine, where it's absorbed and it hydrates all of my cells. I chew my food and it digests. My heart beats without me thinking of it. My liver is processing 300 plus functions right now as we speak, and the first time I've thought of it today is that I just said that. Isn't this amazing? So there's some innate wisdom, there's some innate intelligence that seems to be working in the body. We call this function. It's the biochemical reactions, it's the trillions of reactions and cellular functions that are happening all the time that we never have to think of. That our nervous system is literally providing the flow of information to and from all of these functions so we can sit here. We can put on a coat and have those muscles work. That we can ultimately fight off disease without thinking about it. That our immune systems can function, our hormones can balance. This is all function. Every living thing has an aspect of this. The leaves outside are taking in sunlight and producing energy through the chlorophyll, which is photosynthesis. It means it's synthesizing light to create energy. We do the same thing. We go out in the sunlight, sun rays hit our skin. Depending on our complexion, it produces melanin, which then produces vitamin D. It's beautiful. We breathe in air, and just 1,000 things are happening all the time. Just this constant balance and this beautiful inner ecosystem which is happening without our thinking. This is what we call function. Now, function can easily break down. Again, I said stress is one of the main causes of most dis-ease and a loss of well-being. Stress can also throw the circuits of the proverbial circuit breaker of our nervous system, thereby decreasing function to any areas. So function is important. And ultimately, to have the life force energy, to have the vitality and the vibrancy to want to endeavor to do personal growth, to want to cultivate harmonious relationships with people, to have the energy to make social contribution, requires that we have to have some gas in the tank. That we have to have a net, we have to be in the black with our energy system. And it's wonderful too, because so many of people in this room are givers in many ways. You guys are consciously giving, whether through your work with the church or your own different practices. So to have lots of function in the system implies that you got lots of juice, you got lots of life energy. That you can get up with a zip in your step and go through your day and not feel like you're about to hit the wall at 2 or 3 and just relatively feel good. This allows us to be very adaptable to stress. It allows us not to get overwhelmed by the small stuff. As Richard Carlson says, don't sweat the small stuff, it's all small stuff. But your lizard brain doesn't get that. To it, it's the giant saber-toothed tiger about to clamp its giant tooth-ridden jaws right around you and kill you. So having a healthy sense of function is really important. I just want to put that out there. Function, biochemistry, hormones, basic body functions. This is where this goes. This is the first gift of the spine. Make sense? Can we see how that kind of ties into all the other stuff I talked about? Like, think of these as developmental milestones. If we don't have this, it's hard to do much of anything. If we're laying in bed, trying to get by or living on coffee to give ourselves just enough energy to get by the next 2 hours. We have some challenges with function. Does that sound fair? Good. So I work with people's function in a lot of different ways. I've gotten to work with a lot of professional athletes. So here are people that are pretty functional and pretty high-level functional. And with a lot, especially the Olympic athletes I work with, these sports, where the difference between a medal or between going to the Olympics is often, 0.001, it's a thousandth of a second that will make the difference. So I've worked with Olympic teams from 3 countries with different sports, weightlifting. Most people think weightlifting is a brute sport. It's actually a highly refined nervous system expression. So when you see these guys do this, it's remarkable. Swimmers, so you think, this swimming, these guys, it's like, just faster than I can even do that determines whether you got a gold or silver medal. It's fascinating. So really enhancing function for them, and then I've worked with a lot of track athletes as well. And wanted to share the story. I was just working with a track athlete from here in Charlotte who's going to be going to the 2012 Olympics in London for the hurdles. And the way we work with her is enhance her function. As I've worked with her, she's since had, her best time since, because what's happened is her nervous system has gotten so refined, her muscles are able to fire that much faster, which makes that much more difference, which is the difference to qualify or not. I mentioned this story before, but I love this story because there's a woman I worked with whose basically liver had shut down and she was going to require a liver transplant at some point. She was in degenerative liver disease. And as a result of a medication misuse. And there's over 106,000 deaths each year from non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like Motrin and ibuprofen every year, just from those. And so she was taking a form of that, and it basically zapped out her liver because she had knee pain. So you get knee pain and poor functioning cartilage repair as a 34-year-old woman. This is an example of function. And then to try to override the symptoms of that poor function, which was pain in her knees, she took a medicine in the hopes of helping that, which actually zapped her liver. So now she's got 2 function issues. So basically we worked together, and after a few months she had the liver of a 16-year-old and is doing quite well, and I also take care of her son and her husband. And so these are just examples of how the body can heal itself to go from a liver that would need to be transplanted to moving into fatty liver changes, moving towards almost like cirrhosis of the liver, to having the body's innate wisdom kick back in and say, oh wait, I remember how to do this, and I didn't even have to take a class. The body is a temple, we say, in the Old Testament at least, it's a temple of the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit to me is something that's hard to define, it's very ineffable, and yet it's part of us, it's part of every living being. The second gift of the spine is emotion. It's emotion. So what is emotion? Does anybody have any ideas? A word? Maybe you can think of some emotions. You can give me a definition of what it is.
The reaction?
Sure. And so tell me more. What is it? The way you feel during a reaction? Is it sensation? Tell me more.
Is it an internal reaction to an external stimulus?
Sure. And it can even be an internal reaction to an internal stimulus. Have you ever had your eyes closed and you have a memory or a thought and all of a sudden you feel an emotion?